And so then we turned his dogs loose out into the yard. At first they didn't see him, and they were just running around like they normally do. And all of a sudden they saw him, and they made a beeline for him, and they jumped on him, and they knocked him down, and they were all over him. So yeah, that made it all worthwhile.
Yeah.
Just to know that we reunited him like that.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Lifeline Podcast. Today we have Howard from Sea Dog Inn, and we'll be talking a lot with him about Sea Dog Inn and also the nonprofit that they recently started, Sea Dog Saves. So thanks so much for joining us and being here. Let's just start at the beginning. Can you take us back to 92 and what inspired you to start Sea Dog Inn?
Well, actually, Sea Dog Inn started in 1992 as a hobby breeder that bred huskies.
Okay.
And she had a small building where she kept her dogs. And in 1992, it was purchased by a couple who then turned it into a boarding facility. Between 92 and 98, they added 4 more buildings.
Okay.
And that's when it became the Sea Dog Inn. And so right now we have 98 dog enclosures and 32 cat enclosures. So it's grown quite a bit from the small building in 92.
Yeah. When did you take over?
I took over in 1998.
Okay.
And just as the president, and I moved away for 16 years, and it was run by my manager for 16 years, but I moved back just last year.
Okay. That's great. So you've been at the heart of the community for over 30 years. What has kept you motivated and passionate about pet care?
Well, I was a basset hound breeder. I bred show basset hounds. We did training and obedience and agility, and so I've loved dogs since my 20s.
Yeah.
And so I think the first rescue organization that ever contacted us was Lone Star Basset Rescue.
Okay.
Of course, being a basset hound breeder, I had to help them out.
Yeah.
And the first basset hound we ever helped was Dudley.
That's such a good name for a
Dudley ended up not being an adoptable basset hound, which is kind of rare, but he wasn't adoptable, so he lived out the rest of his life with us. And I think after the word got out that we were working with Lone Star, Second Chance Pets contacted us. So that would be the second group. Okay. And that's how we began to experience, I won't say pleasure, but the rewarding feeling that you get when you help an animal who is in need find a new home.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. What is it about basset hounds that you love so much? Is it their ears?
It's a long story. My wife wandered into my garage one day, and I died laughing. I had to run in the house and get my wife and say, "You need to come out here and look at this dog." It was just so sad looking, and with the long ears and all that loose skin.
Yeah.
And so after that, I knew where it lived, so I walked it back home. And within a month, we bought a basset hound.
That's so great.
Then we got into the showing and the training. So,
yeah. That's funny. The first dog I ever saved was a basset hound when I was a little girl, and we lived on the lake in Illinois, and this basset hound swam up to the dock and smelled. I remember she smelled like fish. My mom made me keep her in the back room, and but we were able to find her owner, and love basset hounds. They're so cute. Okay. Let's see. So it's grown into way more than just a boarding facility. What do you think sets you apart from other places?
Well, one of the things that I kind of refer to us as the Motel 6 of the pet boarding industry.
Okay.
We don't offer cameras where people can be on a cruise and see their dog sleeping on a bed. We keep our costs down so that we can provide what we like to think of it as the best value.
Okay.
In the pet boarding industry.
Sure.
And there are a couple of things that we do. For example, we offer 3 potty breaks a day. Mm-hmm. Now most facilities offer 2 potty breaks a day during their business hours. Mm-hmm. That just seemed like a long time for me for a dog to have to hold it. for that many hours. So I go back usually between 7 and 8 o'clock at night
Mm-hmm.
to give them a third opportunity for a potty break.
Yeah.
So that's one of the differences. The other facilities will offer a third potty break, but they typically charge for it, and it's still going to be between their normal business hours.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that kind of sets us apart. The other thing I think is just our country environment. I mean, the dogs, they get to see chickens and ducks and squirrels and rabbits and even an occasional possum.
Mm.
And so that kind of relieves the tension a little bit. They got a little something to kind of um, pique their interest so they don't get so bored.
Yeah.
And then I think the third thing is just our handling procedures. Um, Unlike some kennels that they have to go in, an attendant has to go in, put a leash on the dog, walk the dog past all the other dogs,
Mm-hmm.
barking at them, take them out, oftentimes take them out, walk them around on the leash on AstroTurf.
Mm-hmm.
Um, our procedures allow us basically to just allow the dog to go out. The attendant doesn't have to really even touch them.
Mm-hmm.
The dogs can go out and explore in our exercise yards. While they're outside, then the attendant is on the inside cleaning their run and providing fresh food and water. And once they learn the procedures, the dogs are waiting at the gate to come back in. Again, never had to be touched by an attendant. And
Mm-hmm.
that's really good for those that are uneasy. Maybe they're a first time boarder or they're just not trusting yet of strangers that we don't, in most cases, have to touch them. Now, we love on them out in the yard if that's what they need.
That's what they want.
I think that helps put the dogs at ease a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, and for sure. And like you said, your kennels are set up where there's the double side. So,
right. Yeah, that's the other thing. The majority of them are indoor outdoor.
uh-huh.
So, weather permitting, the dogs can go in the outside section. It's covered, so they can go in the outside section. They can lay in the sun. They can see the chickens and the ducks or whatever are outside. And even if nothing else, they have more space where if they're intimidated by all the noise and the confusion on the inside with all the dogs barking and carrying on, they can escape to the outside area where they can feel more comfortable.
Yeah. And you've also mentioned to me that you guys are able to typically handle dogs that maybe some other places wouldn't because of the setup.
Yeah, we have some that come in that we've been told that other kennels would not handle them because they were too difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the dog's fault. I mean, it's just that a kennel environment can be very stressful.
Mm-hmm.
And so anything that we're able to do that kind of calms the dogs down and relieves their stress, that's good for the dog and it's good for the humans too, because they come home to a happy dog.
Sure. Awesome. Let's see. I know I'm looking through your notes here and I think it would be great. Can we shout out Gwen, who's been there?
Yeah, Gwen's been with me for 34 years.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
She's well, I say she ran the place for me for 16 years when I was living out of state. And the wonderful thing that I appreciate about Gwen is, and our customers certainly do, is that she gets to know every dog.
Mm-hmm.
She knows their habits. She knows their needs. She knows any little intricacies that will make them be more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And then she instills that into our employees. And the employees they know them. They know all the dogs by name. As soon as they come in, the dogs recognize them. And that's just another step where the customer as well as the animal feels more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
When they walk out the door, they're knowing that somebody who knows their dogs, knows how to take care of them, is the one that's going to be caring for them.
Mm. Yeah, awesome. Great staff. Speaking of your great staff, and I will go through this, but some of the animals you helped us out with were our 4 Great Danes that were not easy to handle, especially in the beginning.
I remember those guys. I remember you called. You had 4 dogs you wanted to bring us. So we went out when you pulled in with the van. I was expecting when you opened the back of the van there'd be 4 dogs in there.
Yeah.
Well, all I could see was what looked like one big dog. And then I realized the puppies were so petrified they were all piled on top of each other, so it looked like one dog. And I remember trying to get them out on leashes and walk them, and of course many of them did the flat dog thing. They weren't going to walk, or they started doing the alligator death roll or whatever.
Yeah.
So we ended up having to pick them up and carry them in. And
And they were big kids.
yeah, well, the one I always laugh about is the one that was so scared. He was being carried in. He lost control of his bowels and
Yep.
he pooped all over my board.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but the fun thing about it was, and clearly those dogs had little to no human interaction. They had no social skills from whoever had them.
Yeah.
And we worked them over the course of a few days. Gradually, they began to trust humans. We'd take them out and we'd love on them just so they could see that that we were good folks. We had meant them no harm. And over time, every single one of them began to trust humans more. And as you know, I'm happy to report all 4 of those dogs have been adopted now.
They
So.
have. Yeah. And thank you, because we really didn't have a good place for them. I just knew that we needed to get them somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's awesome. And thank you to your staff for putting up with their chaos of those Great Dane puppies that were scared of everything. Speaking of that, your motto is pets before profits. So how does that philosophy guide your decisions at
Well,
Sea Dog?
you and I've just had a conversation with one of our newer employees yesterday.
Uh-huh.
We try to instill in them that we want to treat the animals as if they were our own pets.
Mm.
If there's something that pet needs, that if it was our dog or cat, we do it. If it needs a trip to the emergency room, if it needs special medication, if it just needs something small that we can go buy over the counter to help that pet, we do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably just because it's been instilled in me from when I was 20 years old and started working on it. Probably the biggest example of that would be back in 2022. We had a phone call from one of the local city shelters that had received a grant to remodel their entire dog facility.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, Howard, she said, we have 60 dogs. We need to move out for 10 days while this building is remodeled. She says, can you help us? And I said, well, let me talk to my staff and see, what ability we've got, how much space we've got. So I talked to the staff, and so I called her back, and I said, okay, we could take all 60.
Mm.
So they brought over 60 dogs for us. We housed them. Their volunteers came over. They did the walking and the cleaning, but we housed the dogs for the 10 days. We didn't charge them a dime. We
Wow.
wanted them to use their funds to be able to deal with the medical and other care that the animals needed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an amazing experience. It was challenging because we had to shift dogs around and put dogs places
That's
we
a
don't
lot of
normally.
dogs.
Yeah, yeah, but it was a very rewarding. But I think that's when the I always believed that, but I think that's when the slogan actually popped up, the pets
Yeah.
before profits part of it, because I mean clearly there were overhead costs and things involved,
Sure.
and still in that. So, but we were just glad to be able to see we were help those animals and to help the rescue people.
Yeah, and I will tell you that. I mean, I know that that place particularly would never do this, but I have heard of places that when they go to fix the floors, they euthanize all the animals because that's what they need to do to make the space. So that's you offering that is like life-saving. And I know the place that it was. I don't think that they would have done that, but um that's incredible that you offered that. And yeah. I mean, I think it just shows we've also talked I mean, I know you started the nonprofit recently, but you've always been an advocate for animals and helping people. And I think that one of the things that comes to mind when I think of that is what you do for military
Hmm.
and first responders. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, that goes back a long way to I guess, shortly after the war started in Iraq.
Okay.
Um, when soldiers were beginning to be ordered overseas for long deployments, I became aware that oftentimes they had to give up their pet because they didn't have anybody that would take care of it for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started offering military individuals who received orders to go overseas, if it was going to mean they had to lose their pet or give their pet up, that we would house their pet for free.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done that a number of times over the years. Probably the most interesting one was we had one gentleman who was ordered to Afghanistan for a year. He had
Mhm.
two large dogs, couldn't find anybody that would take care of them for him. So he faced the option of having to send his dog to a shelter or give
Mhm.
it up for adoption or something. So we housed their dog for a year, or his dogs for a year. And when he came back, we found out he was coming back. We said, okay, when you come back, what we'll do is we had him go into our large um, exercise play yard and
Mhm.
said, stand in the middle of the yard.
Mhm.
And so then we turned his dogs loose out into the yard. At first, they didn't see him, and they were just running around like they normally do. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, they saw him, and they made a beeline for him, and they jumped on him, and they knocked him down, and
Oh
they
my
were all over
gosh.
him. So, yeah,
That's beautiful.
that made it all worthwhile, just
Yeah.
to know that we reunited him like that, and
Yeah.
he knew he was going to be able to come back and have his dogs.
Yeah. I mean, how terrible to go overseas and they have an opposite situation. That's
Yeah,
amazing. And I mean, that was way before you even got into the nonprofit. So I think it just speaks to
yeah,
your care for
we're still doing
animals.
that today for the military folks.
Yeah.
So.
And speaking of that, so do you want to talk about what inspired you to start like a 501c3 part?
Well, I'll tell you, in 2024,
Mm-hmm.
largely just for getting more involved in Facebook and reading and following rescue organizations on Facebook, I became more aware of the real problem there is in our area with homeless pets.
Mm-hmm.
And um, the research just broke my heart. I said, I've got to do something. When I moved back, I walked. The first day I got back, it was on a Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
and I walked. Went over to the business. We were closed. I just was there by myself, and I walked around and I looked at all these empty runs.
Mm-hmm.
And we're a large facility. We got 98 dog enclosures, so it takes a lot of animals to fill up our facility.
Yeah.
So I had all these empty runs, and I thought there's got to be something we can do. It doesn't make any sense for animals to be euthanized or in bad conditions when I have this facility and the ability to help. So that's when I decided to start the 501c3 organization.
Mm-hmm.
The goal of that was um, it would allow me to hopefully get some financial backing.
Mm-hmm.
When I take the rescues in, my overhead costs are pretty much covered, but it did have the potential to increase labor costs, food costs, and some other costs of cleaning supplies and those kinds of things.
Sure.
And I just couldn't afford to absorb all of that.
Yeah.
So my initial impression was that if I start the 501c3, that I would be in a position to be able to accept donations and get some financial help.
Yeah.
Secondly, depending on the finances coming in, I would be able to help other rescue organizations by giving them grants.
Mm-hmm.
When they have a need, I'd be able to give grant money. So that was the initiative to start the 501c3.
Amazing. Yeah. How's it going so far?
Uh, well, you're in the business.
I
You know
know.
how hard it is to get donations.
Yeah. You
The
guys have some good social media ads though that I've
Yeah,
seen.
the thankfully I'm not dependent on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I had 1 week or 1 month February. I had 18 rescue dogs and 2 rescue cats there.
Yeah.
And the money really wasn't there, but that's where the pets before profits comes in.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just eat it.
Yeah.
But that would be an area where maybe if the word gets out of what we're trying to do, maybe there would be some help in that area. But it's not going.
Absolutely should be though, because that is a lot to house all those that's 20 animals that you're putting a roof over, feeding, paying staff to care for.
Well, my plan, I can only think of one time that I had to do it. My plan from very early days of Sea Dog Inn was that I would never turn a rescue away.
Mm-hmm.
Only one time in the last year I had to do that one time simply because I just didn't have the man hours. I didn't have the manpower to be able to handle it.
Yeah.
But that's kind of always been the goal.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. this isn't on here. I'm just curious. I mean, you've spoken about kind of how you got into this. It's interesting that it started with like breeding. And I with rescues, there's like in the rescue world, there's some people who kind of really get on it. And I'm actually not one of those people. I think there's some nuance in the world of animal rescue and yeah. So I'm just curious like what your thoughts are on it now.
Well, having been on both sides,
Sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, I can certainly understand why there are some folks. It's the what is it? Adopt, don't buy.
Adopt, don't shop. Yeah.
Um, y- y- you, I was a show breeder,
Yeah.
so
You're
I bred. I
responsible.
bred for
Yeah.
health. You know, if I
Sure.
sold a puppy, it was spayed. That wasn't a show dog. It was spayed or neutered.
Mm-hmm.
If anything ever happened to that dog, any point in its life that people couldn't keep it, I bought it back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, I did everything that you would want a breeder to do. There was nothing about what that I did and the people that think like me and are in the show business. The difficulty is the backyard breeders. That's where it runs into, and that's what gives kind of breeding this kind of connotation.
Sure.
There's got to be a balance between the rescue side of things and the breeding side of things. I would not be opposed to a governmental institution requiring a breeder's license and charging $1,000 a year to have a breeder's license. I mean, something has to be done, and I think we just have to be creative and open to however to solve whatever's going to take to solve the problem. It's just too big.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that too. I mean, I don't think it's the responsible breeders that are the problem. It's the backyard ones. Okay, so you've seen a lot of changes in the pet landscape over the years. What do you see as the biggest challenges for rescues and shelters right now?
Well, again, having done the research that I did, there's no way we're going to foster and adopt our way out of this problem.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe certain areas of the country, maybe, but in Texas, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Spay and neuter's got to be part of the solution.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at it as a three-legged stool.
I like this. I was reading this and I was like, that's so good. Yeah, go ahead.
Foster and adopt obviously is going to play a role. But shelters, rescue organizations are never going to be able to build enough facilities to handle all the animals that are on the street.
Mm-hmm.
So the spay neuter part of it has got to play a significant role in that. And then the third thing I think was, I mean, I didn't until I made an effort to do some research and kind of get an understanding of how bad the problem. I had no clue.
Mm.
So the third leg of the stool would be just making people aware of what the problem's like.
Yeah.
And so, but one of the things that we're doing to support that concept is we are offering anybody that adopts an animal, or if they spay or neuter an animal they already own this year, we will give them a $25 gift certificate for any service we offer.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a lot of money, but I think one of the things we need to do is we need to incentivize people to
do the right thing,
to do the behavior we want them to do.
Yeah.
And it's not a big incentive, but if it'll encourage somebody to get their pet spayed because they're going to save $25, or it'll encourage them to adopt a dog because they're going to get $25 off, it's not a lot, but that's kind of putting our money where our mouth is. That's how we're trying to support the three-legged stool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you can't go neuter the dogs in the back, huh? No. No. Just kidding. Okay, so we've been so grateful for your support from, I mean, of course, housing our Great Danes, to you also let us use your yard to do some group training for our dogs. What has it meant to you to partner with Lifeline and other organizations like ours?
Well, like I said, it just really touched my heart when I understood how significant the problem was.
Mm-hmm.
And I am pretty much open to anything that we're able to offer a rescue organization. If you want to do like you do, have social activities, we got a large lighted field fenced in. Beautiful. With a 6-foot high fence.
Yeah.
So people want to come, and if trainers want to come and do have obedience training classes.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a show club out there that wants to have a fun match, uh, I could have it at my facility. We are going to be doing. I'm planning on. Actually, I haven't told you about it yet. I'm
Exciting.
planning on doing our second rescue roundup, which is
Okay.
where we will have, hopefully, we will have 6 or 7 or 8 different rescue organizations that will come out to our property. We have air conditioned buildings. Some of them can put their dogs in the air conditioned spaces. It's got a lot of shady yards, got a lot of, and we want to have an option where people can come just and not look at one rescue organization, but there will be multiple rescue organizations that they can hopefully find a dog or a cat that they would like to adopt,
Yeah.
as well as we're trying to coordinate with one of the low cost vaccination vans
Yeah.
to come out and do low cost vaccinations at the same time.
I
So
love
there's just
that.
I'm open to just about anything
Yeah.
that we're able to do. But that would be, we're planning on that in June.
Okay. That's awesome. Um, and that's a really good time because that's when a lot of the shelters struggle a lot in the summer months and rescues.
Well, I just saw, sitting out here in the lobby waiting, I just saw Bark is full, and they've got 486 animals, and of course that's only in April, and they're
Mm-hmm.
expecting an influx with the summer, and they're basically, as you know, what their conditions are as far as how long they keep dogs,
Yeah.
where they have to make a decision on them. They're asking for people to come help them get some of those dogs out of there so they'll have room for more.
Yeah.
So anything that we can do between now and June and July is going to help all the rescues, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. Um, well, how can listeners support Sea Dog Saves or Sea Dog In, whether they're a pet owner, an adopter, or just an animal lover?
Well, if you own a pet,
Uh-huh.
it would help if you would consider, and you need boarding or grooming services, if you would consider using our services.
Hmm.
Obviously, we have a geographical location that will be convenient for.
Yeah.
But that would be one step, because the support of the Sea Dog Inn helps us finance our efforts for Sea Dog Saves.
Yes.
The second thing would be to, if you don't own a pet, would be to consider donating, and you can
Hmm.
do that on our website, or either one. I have a website for Sea Dog Inn, is at www.seadogin.com.
Hmm.
Sea Dog Saves is www.seadogsaves.com, and we also have both of them have pages on Facebook.
Okay.
So
Great.
those would be 2 or 3 of the ways if they could do that.
Okay. Awesome. And I don't think we mentioned it, but Sea Dog Inn is located in League City.
Yeah, it's in the heart of League City, right behind the Kroger store at FM 270 at 518.
Pretty close to, isn't that City Hall right there? Or
It's
is
not.
that City building?
It's like 3 minutes from City Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Um, let's see. Anything else you'd like to share about your journey, the pets in your care, and how we can all play a part of helping the animals?
Well, it's like so many things. If you find a problem, and then once you understand how big the problem
It is an enormous
yeah,
problem.
it is. For those of you who don't know, Texas is,
It's the highest kill
it's
state in the
crazy.
country.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Yeah.
The tendency is to say, "What can I do?"
Yeah.
There's so much. The need is so great. What can little old me do?
Hmm.
Well, what I always tell people is, you may not be able to save them all, but you can save one.
Hmm.
So do what it is. Do whatever you can do to help. And the other thing I think I'd like to just pass on to folks is that my old thermometer and thermostat thing. There's the difference between a thermometer and a thermostat. You try to explain it to somebody. The easiest way I explain it to somebody is, a thermometer will tell you what the temperature of the room is.
Okay.
It'll tell you kind of like what the environment's like, whatever it is. A thermostat controls the temperature of the room.
Uh-huh.
That's the one that's going to make you either more comfortable, or if you need a little cooler or a little bit warmer. So what I'm trying to tell people is when it comes to rescue, be a thermostat.
Okay.
Make a difference. Step in and do something. Do whatever it is you can do.
Yeah.
You can do something. You can write a letter. You can donate. You can take a pet. You can
Share
share
a
a
post.
Facebook post.
Hey, there, look at us on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just do something. if you find out how large this problem is, you will be motivated. If you like animals, you will be
Yeah.
motivated to do something.
Yeah. Somebody told me one time, and I always like it, that like once you get into this, it's like the mafia. You can't get out because
Yeah.
it's like you see everything.
Yeah.
But okay, so where can people find you online and in person? I know you kind of mentioned it, but let's just recap.
I mentioned the website. We also you can email us if you just need some information about how you could help, or just want some information on the company. The email address is manager@seadoginn.com. Our phone number is 281-554-2068. And you always got to repeat the website address.
Yeah, please.
It's www.seadoginn.com or www.seadogsaves.com. And we would be more than happy to share whatever we can with anybody.
Great. And I just had this question, that burning question popped in my head. How do you sustain a business for 30 years?
Especially when you're gone 16 of them.
Yeah, I know. That's like very impressive.
Well, one of the things I didn't mention is that when I took over the organization in 1998, basically there were 5 boarding facilities within 10 miles of League City. 3 of those have now gone out of business. So we've survived.
Yeah.
In about 2004, it became widely known nationwide that League City was the fastest growing area in Texas. So the franchise boarding facilities flocked to League City. So now there's about 15 different boarding options, and then you got the pet sitters, and you got the people,
the rover,
I'll board in my home type thing. So there's a lot more competition. I think largely it's because Gwen has obviously been a large part of it. She ran the place for me for 16 years while I was gone, and she loves animals, and the people love her, and the animals love her. And the other thing is, I think, is just providing excellent care. I think when people open their car door and the dog just runs in the front door, runs out the back door, and goes into an empty run that's sitting there because it's been there so many times and it loves it there.
Yeah.
That's when you know you're doing something right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a large part of it.
Okay.
And we're kind of back in the country. Nobody really knows we're there. That's what I'm talking about, seeing the chickens and the ducks and stuff. You don't normally see that.
Yeah.
So we're kind of hidden. And my goal coming back was to kind of build awareness that we're there and everything. So
yeah.
But I think just providing the kind of experience that the customers want. What I always tell my employees is there's 2 things that are critical. When the dog leaves, the dog needs to be happy, or the cat. And when the customer picks the dog or cat up, they need to be happy. Okay. And as long as both those people walk out that front door happy, they'll be back.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we try to do.
That's simple, but effective. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us and working with us and everything you do for the community. All right. Bye, everyone.